Well, game 2 is a very interesting one because it features none other than Garry Kasparov in action with the white pieces against Hracek, a grandmaster from the Czech Republic. And this was from a simul Kasparov gave in Prague in the year 2001 against the Czech national team. And it's another indication of how solid the Accelerated Dragon is, even at the very top level, because Hracek managed to draw with Kasparov, and that's not easy to do with the black pieces, believe me. Another interesting is the move order, because Kasparov kicked off with the move c4. Which gives you an indication of how flexible this opening is, how many different lines white can play, and we still reach the Accelerated Dragon position. So let's just see the move order of this game. c4, c5. Of course, if you play the Accelerated Dragon, you might like to answer the English in this way to get back to your favourite variation. g6, white opens up the centre with d4, we take it. Knight takes d4, knight c6. And now Kasparov goes straight back into Accelerated Dragon, pawn to e4. And here we see the Maroczy bind position, with the white pawns on e4 and c4, hopefully cramping all the life out of black's game. This is the most dangerous variation that black has to face when he plays the Accelerated Dragon. Now actually this game is doubly instructive because Hracek plays the variation I'm going to be recommending later on the video. I think it's the most solid line for black and the best one too. And it kicks off with the move knight f6. That's not the obvious move here in my opinion, because black could play bishop g7, but knight f6 introduces the Gurgenidze variation, and yeah, Hracek plays it very well in this game. Knight c3, defending the e-pawn, and now pawn to d6, holding back on the move bishop g7. This is the most accurate move order. It stops white from playing certain attacking variations if black had played an early bishop g7. This is the most accurate move order for black. Okay, well Kasparov played f3. There are other moves, we'll deal with them later. Bishop g7, white brings his bishop out to the central square, black castles, bishop comes to e2. And now another very typical idea in the Gurgenidze variation, black snaps off the knight at d4. Okay, there are lines in which white takes with the queen. Again, we'll examine them later. Kasparov took with the bishop. Doesn't matter too much because black gets on with his typical piece placements in this line. The natural move, bishop to e6. Now, one of the nice things about this line from black's point of view is that he's got a clear plan of development, which Hracek displays in this game. We'll just go on and I'll show you what that is. Okay, white castles. And now queen to a5. Kasparov played king h1. I mean, he has other options, but that safety is the king against later black tactics. And now another typical piece placement by Hracek, rook f to c8. You might ask why that rook as opposed to the rook on a8. Well, sometimes I think the rook on a8 can quite handily be deployed at b8. Black's plan comes into focus. I think black wants to get in the move b5 in this line. If you can play rook b8, a6 and then b5, he's really going to be in business. Okay, well Kasparov played b3. The pressure on c4 was obviously quite serious. Black played knight d7. Kasparov played f4, hoping to start some sort of kingside attack. Off came the bishops. Queen takes d4 and then queen to c5. And for me, this is another very instructive move because the more pieces that come off in the Maroczy bind, the less dangerous the bind becomes. Black can often angle for endgames in the Maroczy bind, particularly good knight against bad bishop. That's a very common feature of Maroczy bind positions. And so naturally, Kasparov, wanting the advantage, keeps the queens on. I think if he took the queen off, allowing knight takes c5, you know, it's black who has, if anything, a small edge in that position. Queen to d3 was happening, and then f6. And the idea of that move is to dissuade Kasparov from playing f5. Bishop just drops back to f7. Swung his queen across to g3, and now Hracek redeployed his rooks. Fate, rook a d1, rook a8. Kasparov played h3, and now queen went to a5. Right, well Kasparov played bishop g4. Black took on g4. Queen takes g4, and now bind-breaking move, pawn to f5. And here I think black's got enough counterplay to call the position equal. The game went on, queen f3, f takes e4, knight takes e4, the queen snapped off the pawn at a2, rook went to a1, this was Kasparov's idea in giving the pawn, queen went to b2, again coming back to the dark squares, controlling all those dark squares, as many dark squares as possible, rook takes on a7, and now the queen went to d4. Sacrificing the pawn at b7, but at the same time activating his pieces to the maximum. Well, white's got nothing better than to take on b7, and now knight e5. That was black's nice point, trying to overload the white queen. Queen went to e2, and then knight to d3. And this is excellent play by black, a model game in many ways, showing how to break the bind with the help of active play and dark square control. Okay, well, Kasparov is not one to sit back and let the opponent dictate the game, so here he is trying to wrest the initiative back from black with the move f5. Black took, rook takes f5, I think he must. White recaptured. G takes f5, and now queen to h5. Very interesting move. Hitting the rook on e8 and threatening presumably checks and the pawn at f5 at the same time. But Hracek, as before, had it all under control. Rook to a8. Of course, Hracek is a strong grandmaster, so he would have seen the finish coming up. Rook captured on e7, and just at the moment when it seems things are all up for black, he displays his idea. Rook comes into a1 check, king goes to h2, queen comes into g1 check. It turns out that it's in fact white's king who's more exposed. King comes out to g3. Queen to e1 check. Well, there's no choice. King must come back, and the game ended in a draw by perpetual check. Queen g1 check, king g3, queen e1 check. So a nice game by both players. Hracek showed a kind of model strategy for black against the Maroczy binder, I think. To draw with Kasparov is no mean feat.